As the Eurozone continues to claim its casualties, I'm joined by Jean-Jacques Ohana, president and co-founder of French investment advisory firm Riskelia, to discuss the damage being done to markets outside of the Eurozone. Jean-Jacques, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for welcoming me.
Eurozone volatility is once again dominating the markets with renewed concerns over sovereign debt. European bonds have sold off sharply as fiscal troubles intensify for Italy and Spain. Yet despite this, the euro has managed to remain largely stable against the US dollar. Why is this?
The euro dollar has been driven by two opposite forces. One force is the risk appetite. The risk appetite is quite favorable to the parity. Contrary to the risk appetite, the opposite driving force has been the Eurozone woes as a whole, and mainly the problem in Spain, which have become more and more acute now. The Spanish problem is very serious now, which has prevented the parity to go higher. So in fact, the euro dollar is stuck into the middle of this range, but I suspect that it's going to break much lower when the Eurozone problems get unresolved through the LTRO. In fact, the LTRO has enabled us to win time, but the time won through the LTRO operations by the European Central Bank has been much shorter than expected before. So I suspect that then when the Spanish situation gets more and more acute, some radical political change must be taken. But as there is a huge political hesitation between the Eurozone countries, I would say that the situation in the Eurozone has to get much worse before it gets better.
The Asian markets particularly have taken a tumble as Spain's borrowing costs soar. This has only added to concerns over a weakening yen. What are your predictions for this currency for 2012?
In fact, exactly like the euro dollar, the dollar yen and the yen has been driven by opposite forces. Risk appetite is of course unfavorable to the yen, and the yen has been weakening in the first part of the year. And now, as the Eurozone woes amplify, it has reflected positively on the yen. But I would say that the yen rise is unsustainable now. Japanese corporate has been weakening by the yen appreciation. The current account, the Japanese current account, has been deteriorating. So I would suspect that the yen weakness should pursue during the year. I would not play the euro yen, but I would play directly the dollar yen, or I think we're going to mention this currency, the CAD yen. But dollar zone currencies against the yen.
Japan announced yesterday that it will provide $60 billion worth of loans to the IMF in an effort to boost the Eurozone firewall and hopefully contain the crisis. Bearing in mind what we've just said about the yen, do you think that that's a wise move?
I think it's a nonsense because yen is the Japanese government is heavily indebted. The Eurozone as a whole is sustainable. The problem in the Eurozone are imbalances. And in fact, that people must be aware that Germany must pay for the euro. The North countries must pay for the southern countries. And it's not up to the Japanese to pay for the Eurozone woes. So in fact, it is absolutely nonsense.
The Bank of Canada announced yesterday that it will increase interest rates, sparking a downturn in the dollar-CAD pairing. Do you think that this downturn will continue? And how does that relate to the situation in Europe?
I think it's a very important move from the Bank of Canada, and it could justify a lower dollar move against the Canadian currency, and also a global appreciation of the Canadian currencies against many currencies. And it reflects that the dollar zone it goes well compared to the Eurozone, because the dollar zone is the dollar and the Canada and Canadian zone also, and employment has been improving in US and in Canada of course, with a soft patch, but in a much steadier way than in Europe. And I think that the Canadian appreciation could continue against the dollar, against the euro also.
Jean-Jacques, thank you very much.
Thank you for receiving me.
That's all we've got time for right now. However, do please stay tuned to Dukascopy TV for more exclusive interviews and your latest analysis and updates. For now, goodbye.